This is waste material from 3D printing. We've got the poop, the part that gets extruded when changing color, bits from failed prints, support material, and some prints that just had some issues. And this is just one bag that I've collected over the last few weeks. And compared to other 3D printing YouTubers, this isn't much, but also it's too much. So what can we do about it? We can make something like this. This is a solid aluminium mold that I'm hoping will let me transform the waste plastic into new products. I designed it in Fusion and then PCBWay manufactured it for me. But more on that later because I just went out and bought this. It's a grotty old convection oven from Facebook Marketplace to melt the plastic in. I paid $20, which isn't a good deal. There were cheaper, better looking ovens on there, but I would just feel bad if I ruined a perfectly functional oven by melting plastic inside of it. Anyway, so the plan is I put the plastic inside the mold, put the mold inside the oven, crank up the heat to melt the plastic, turn off the oven, wait for it to cool down, and then pop the plastic out of the mold. But before we can do that, let's quickly talk about safety. Firstly, kids, please don't try this at home. Second, if you don't 100% understand the plastic you're working with, don't use it. Melting or burning unknown or contaminated plastic can create fumes that you really don't want to be breathing in. In this video, I know that I'm using PLA only, which means I know the exact safe melting temperatures, and I know the temperatures to avoid so I don't create fumes. Third, I'm using heat-resistant gloves so I don't burn myself. And finally, just in case things go horribly wrong, I'm doing all the oven stuff outside where there's plenty of ventilation, and my fire blanket and fire extinguisher are located nearby. And now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. I started by spraying a bit of silicone spray into the mold. People on the internet told me this will help later, and then loaded it up with some PLA poop. For the initial test, I'm just using one of the slots, and I turned the temperature to around 190 degrees. It took around 15 minutes for the first bits of the PLA to melt, so then I added another layer, waited 10 minutes for that to melt, poked it with an Allen key to get rid of any air bubbles that could be there, and then added another layer and so on until the mold was more or less filled. And after that, it was getting late, so I let it cool down overnight. But the next day, I noticed that a crack appeared. My guess is that it either cooled down unevenly or maybe it shrunk a bit after cooling down and ripped itself apart. I'm not sure, so if you know, let me know down below. But for now, I'm just going to ignore it because there's a much more important task, removing the plastic from the mold. I tried tapping it out with a hammer to no success, and I foolishly tried to wedge it out with a blade, but that just ended up scratching the aluminium. The strategy that did work for me though was to screw in a screw and then rip it all out with pliers. And here it is. I cleaned it up with some side cutters and then followed that up with a deburring tool that removed the sharp edges. And if you're wondering what it is, it's a multi-tool I designed that has a slot for a screwdriver bit, a thin edge to use as a pry tool, a questionable ruler, and it's also a keyring. I especially like the bottom surface. Now, I could sand it down to make it all flat, but I think I just really enjoy the unevenness and the texture. It just gives much more of a handmade feeling that I really enjoy, though there are a lot of small air bubbles, which is unfortunate, but they aren't too noticeable, and again, I just really enjoy the handmade vibe. Anyway, before I make any more of these, I want to quickly talk about some design stuff. So going into this project, I knew I wanted to make something small and practical that people will actually want to use, and people seem to really enjoy my maker coins, which have slots for screwdriver bits. So my initial thought was to make small keyring screwdrivers in this kind of a shape. The problem with this though is that it would be impossible to remove from a basic one-piece mold like I planned on using. If I had a lot of free time, money, and space, I would absolutely love to make a multi-part mold and a DIY injection molding machine, but I don't, so I'm trying to keep this project somewhat manageable. I could change the shape into this, but there'd be too much depth here for the CNC to actually mill it out. I could rotate it, but then it would be impossible to mill the negative area for the bit slot, so I had to completely rethink my design, and this is what I came up with. It's a flat design that should be easy enough to mill since there's no undercuts or sections that are too deep, and I went through a few versions, 3D printed some samples, and then settled on this one. From there, I turned it into a negative mold and also made the walls a bit higher than needed so I could stack the plastic on top without it all falling off. And I also made these cutouts because I thought they would help with removing the screwdrivers, but they didn't. I then exported it as a step file, uploaded it to PCBWay's CNC Machining service, selected the default aluminium material settings, and also chose to get it anodized. I submitted my request, and a week or so later, the part showed up at my door in amazing condition. PCBWay are the sponsors of this video, and they've been amazing at making custom parts not just for this project, but but for many others as well, like this 3D printed phone case and these CNC parts here. This one even has chrome plating that looks phenomenal. They also of course do circuit boards if that's more your thing. So if you're interested in getting some custom parts made, please check out the link below to PCBWay. And also thank you to PCBWay for sending me this box of holiday goodies. That was really nice of you and very much appreciated, so cheers. Anyway, back to this. I tried fixing the crack by melting it back together with a lighter, but it didn't work like I hoped it would, and I really didn't want to burn the plastic, so I gave up on it pretty quickly. So instead, I just snapped it off and put it back in the oven with some more poop for a bit. Except this time, I made the mistake of using far too much silicone spray. It did make it a lot easier to remove, but it also made these really big bubbles happen. Not good. So at this point, I made a short video that you might have already seen, asking if anyone has any tips, and I got some really good responses, like wiping on the silicone spray so it's more even, being more rigorous with air bubble removal by stabbing more, and removing the screwdrivers while they're still warm so it's both easier to remove and also to avoid any potential cracking. But there's also a few things that I'm not going to try, like I don't want to use a vacuum chamber to remove air bubbles, I'm not going to make a new mold out of silicone, and I'm not going to make a second aluminium piece that compresses from the other side. These are good ideas, but they're a little overkill for me right now, but maybe in the future. Anyway, thanks for your comments. Now let's make some more and we'll see how they go. And here we are. These are absolutely deadly. While they're not perfect, I'm incredibly happy with them. It's just fulfilling to make something out of junk, and it's so much better than plastic ending up in my rubbish or even my recycling bin. Now, I'm going to keep making some more of these over the next few weeks, and I'm going to give them all away. So check out the link below if you're interested, and I'm also really keen to hear your ideas for improvements or completely new molds that I could make in the future. I had a lot of fun with this project, and I have a few ideas for what's next, so I'm definitely not stopping here. Plus, I have a few new toys that should be able to help. A review video for this beast is also coming soon, so if you're keen like me, maybe consider subscribing. Cheers.